You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome to this live recording of the Claret and Blue podcast. I'm Dan Rolinson. I'm joined by James Rushton this lunchtime. James, how are you, friend?
All good. Got coffee, got my water. It's nice and cool. Ready to talk Villa.
Yeah, mate, happy days. I will excuse any sniffing that might happen in this podcast because I've got terrible hay fever today, so I'll try and keep the sniffing and the nose wiping to a minimum. We're here today to answer all your Aston Villa or non-Aston Villa questions, whatever you put to us in this live chat here on my screen. We will try our best to answer this afternoon. James, I assume people are going to ask about transfers straight away, so should we just cover that off first of all? What's the latest with transfers? Have we signed a player yet?
Nah.
There we go. Let's move on.
We had Aaron Ramsdale interest. We spoke about that on Facebook Live, but I know this is our podcast, so I guess we need to kind of go over that again because there'll be people who weren't here yesterday. Aaron Ramsdale interest, so that's been reported. Sheffield United have had a bid accepted of around 18 million, whether that's 10 million with 8 million in instalments. Don't really know, don't really care because it's still, whatever way you look at it, it's 18 million in it. I think he's would be valuable for Villa. Clearly a very good keeper. He's 22. I've seen people say he's 34. I don't know where is that coming from?
Someone's getting confused with someone else there.
I think people think he's been sitting on the reserves for ages and he's just been called in. Now he's 22. Sheffield United sold him, I think, to Bournemouth. So getting him back because Dean Henderson's going on to bigger things. Unfortunately, I'm shame for Sheffield United. Been a very good team, and I think they've been, as we said yesterday, refreshing. So for them to have that loss, I feel for the Premier League, it's a bit of a shame. They need to keep those standards high. But as a Villa fan, if we're on that same level next season, if they drop down a bit, tough for them. We have to take that opportunity, and I think Ramsdale's a great keeper. And bear in mind, we've still got Tom Heaton, who's injured. But I feel like if you ask Villa fans if they'd be comfortable with All in Ireland, based on League Cup performances, yes, absolutely number one. Based on kind of the shaky goalkeeper he became again after Project Restart, I'd say I'd be worried.
I think there's still a debate to be had about whether the goalkeeper is a priority at this stage. I think if we'd already signed some players that were a priority position, if we'd already got our striker and our winger and we were looking at, right, well, there's a goalkeeper that's become available, let's make a move there. I think that's when you'd maybe look to sign one. I think because we don't really know what's happening with Heaton yet. If he's out for another 2 or 3 months, then yes, I think you probably do need to sign someone to come in and play in those Premier League games and start for us. I don't think Neeland would be someone that you'd want to rely on up until January, for example. So whether that's a big name signing that you bring someone in like Ramsgate, who we got massively confused with yesterday, thanks to some of the comments, whether it's a move like that that's coming in to kind of almost replace Heaton and be the number one and Heaton becomes your backup, or you go for someone on loan until Heaton comes back. I'm not sure what happens with goalkeeper. It just doesn't feel like a priority to me for some reason.
Yeah, I feel like it's an odd position, isn't it? Because a goalkeeper signing is quite literally never exciting. Like,
it's boring, isn't it?
But even if you buy someone who's like been world class, like Rainer, it's like, yeah, okay, that's all right. It's never like get in. We've got
it's a striking one, isn't it? It's striking one you get excited over.
Yeah, Heaton was a little different because, I think he had a big reputation. He was very clearly very good, and for Villa to get him the same, I feel like people are uncomfortable at spending big money on a goalkeeper. You kind of have to. If you want a quality goalkeeper, you've clearly got to spend big money. And Ramsdale, the kind of price, I've seen it people say 22 million because of a sell-on clause. From what I've read, I'm kind of getting my understanding of transfer deals is growing a bit with every page I read of this book we mentioned yesterday. So I'm like just dipping into that knowledge and pretending I'm an expert. But I don't think like if you have a sell-on clause and then you buy the player back, I don't think it exists at all. Like that selling, if you can't have a sell-on clause to yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like how it makes you sound like an expert by saying my understanding is, as if you've got some kind of insight. I've been told, my sources say.
Yeah, like literally. So we had this Douglas Luiz thing yesterday, and I was reading on the page of the book, and I was like, you know what? I'm on this page. I'll drop the knowledge. I'll have to drop the knowledge bomb on them. I read the page. I was like, yes, I'm the expert now.
What happened with Douglas Luiz yesterday is I've talked about this before. I'm not one for sitting here and reacting to every piece of breaking news or not breaking news, any transfer room that comes through, because I don't know, I'll just find the whole thing boring, which is probably not great to be sat on a Villa podcast, and my job is part of my job is to talk about what happens. I find it boring to just guess about things.
Yeah, you text me like, what's a good analogy I can use?
That's what I feel. I feel like I need some kind of comparison. It just seems stupid to work in this industry and not be excited about transfer rumours, because that is kind of the bread and butter for what we do. But I don't know, it just doesn't excite me, because 1 minute David Luiz, here we go.
Yeah.
Douglas Luiz's brother apparently is tweeting something saying like, hyping up Douglas basically. He's not saying there's a move happening. There's nothing serious. I've not got it in front of me, but he kind of just said, my brother, heart emoji, whatever. And everyone's going, oh my God, that means he's going back to Man City. He's made the move. His brother's congratulating. I'm going back to a big club. Here we go. Everyone's in meltdown. And then a couple of hours later, John Percy's tweeting saying that there's no plans for Pep to bring Douglas Luiz back. And it's like, and everyone's going, oh, yes, absolutely great news. Douglas Luiz is staying. It's all you've had 2 Twitter meltdowns there in the space of a couple of hours based on 2 separate tweets, and it's like, you can't believe one because you don't want to believe it, and don't believe the other one because you do want to believe it. It's just news, isn't it? I'd rather just wait and see what happens for definite. If he moves, he moves. If he stays, he stays. Yes, obviously we want to keep these players, and Douglas Luiz is a massive part of Villa trying to have any success next year. But I'm not going to sit here and get upset, let's say, about a few tweets coming through. Yeah,
it's like, I'm not gonna, whoever says anything, it's not until the end of the window, nothing's certain. Like if Man City get an injury in Douglas Luiz's position on deadline day, do you think they're just not gonna not activate that clause? Like,
yeah, just because Percy said now that he's probably going to stay because Man City aren't interested, there's still a month left of the window for that to change. Yeah. Pep might suddenly go, actually, you know what, I do think we do need him back. We do need the extra depth for whatever reason, and the whole situation's changed again. Then you look at John Percy's tweet and go, oh, he was wrong. It's like, well, no, things just change.
Yeah, like you can have an interest in it if you have that clause. If that clause exists, you have an interest in it anyway. Like, because that is it's like you put it there in place to action that deal. If he comes good, he clearly has gone good, and things change. It's like this Jack Grealish thing. Stuff always comes down to the wire with these big moves. Like, things change, and the problem with transfer news is people disbelieve negative things. So when a report in Brazil comes up about one thing, they disbelieve it, and they're praying for negative news, the positive news. When the positive news comes, they believe it, and it's you have to find that middle ground. You have to kind of be rational and apply that critical thinking. You have to realise that I know he's Villa's player. Technically, like, you could consider him Man City's because they have that thing off hanging over his head by that contract. Get him in, sorted. It's easy as done.
Does that buyback clause run out at any point? Is there any point during his time with Villa where that clause cannot be activated?
I feel
or is that just guesswork?
I feel like they originally, I think going back to the original signing, it was like next season. So as long as we get through next deadline day, the next summer's deadline day, and they haven't activated it, it's gone.
Right, okay.
As far as it's as what's been said, but I guess like this contract, it's never going to be one of the the Martial one that was leaked to no one really knows the small details, the small in the small fonts at the end of the contract. No one really knows it.
Tim Seeley says Douglas Luiz's cat was seen sleeping on a Man City blanket. He must be heading back to Manchester.
So this is how it works. And it's like the Rashica thing we brought up. It's like, he's on a plane. He's not wearing Werder Bremen gear. And
he must be coming to Villa.
Minutes later, he's spotted he's going to their training camp, which you have to catch from a plane from Bremen to Austria. It's silly. It's called silly season for a reason. I think stuff has died down. If Twitter was around in 2006, Carrie Redknapp hanging out a car window. And I think Twitter was around in 2006. I don't know, was it? I don't know.
Nah, it was later than that.
It's some form, maybe. Because I remember you used to have to text to send the tweet. You had to send a text to Twitter to put the tweet up. But if it was around in 2000, it'd be mental. Like, what you see now is nothing compared to how it was. I remember BBC Gossip Line hanging on it until midnight, and stuff was still. It's just madness. People saying they'd seen Didier Drogba down the laundrette and stuff. And then people actually reporting on that, and hanging outside the training grounds. Nothing like that anymore.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? Because as much as I'm sat here saying, let's not get carried away with things that we see on Twitter, we host a podcast about Aston Villa where we have to talk about the latest news and rumours, and it kind of feels counterproductive to say, I don't believe in any of that, but also please subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep up to date what we're doing. It's conflicting, isn't it? But just personally, as me speaking, and not as a representative of work or the podcast or anyone else that we work with, I just can't buy into the excitement of it anymore. I think maybe when I was younger, it was an exciting thing to look at rumours and guess how the lineup might look next season and things like that. Whereas maybe I'm a little bit more jaded and boring and negative these days. Where I don't get excited about guessing that what the lineup might look like next season, because things change too much. I'll think about what the lineup looks like after the window closes, and we'll talk about it then. I don't really like getting too carried away. I feel a bit like how we described Dean Smith about doesn't get too high with the highs, doesn't get too low with the lows. That's how I want to approach the transfer window. If there's a little inkling that, maybe Douglas Luiz is going to leave, I'm not going to sit there and cry about it because it hasn't happened yet. We'll react to it when it happens, not guess about it.
Yeah.
But I'm fully aware that people do get excited about these things, and that's in their right too. I'm not slagging people off for getting excited about transfer rumours, because that is part of being a football fan. Personally speaking, I'm just not that bothered anymore.
Yeah, it's not a negative thing to not be bothered about it. It's like, I feel it's almost a negative thing to kind of get so wound up about it, and kind of constantly changing your kind of perspective is a good thing. But what we saw yesterday was like Douglas Luiz is going, then he's not in the space of an hour. Like literally the hive mind mindset of this is happening, then it's not, and it's kind of unhealthy, right? Like you're switching, so you're going so far in this one perspective, you're blinded to the other one, and then the other one comes out of nowhere and hits you, and you was hoping for the other one to happen anyway. So you kind of get it, kind of it reaffirms that it's like, oh, I was doing the right thing anyway because what I wanted to happened, and it's not always like that, is it? As we know, it's never going to turn out like that. But I feel like people have this misunderstanding that your job as a journalist is to break news, and I guess it is to be first to say this is happening, that's happening, but to present the full picture, I think, is the best way to handle it. Is to wait for things to happen, not be the first, but be the one who presents that best view of things, because people's mind opinions of stuff is always going to be based off of an article they've read, because it's like that they're going to go for that confirmation bias and look for stuff that they want to hear. So I think the best job is to wait for what happens. If something happens, if it's like that deal's done, like when HLN in Belgium said Wesley's coming, react to that, present the best picture possible, and get that information for a fairly unknown player who Villa fans may not have heard of unless you've been playing FIFA Ultimate Team, you know what I mean? Right, and get the best picture possible. How does this player fit into Villa? That's the best job you can do, rather than being first and then probably wrong to stuff.
Here's a question for you then. It's something that we've not really talked about before on air. As you, as a journalist now, as that is in your job description. I don't class myself as a journalist because it isn't in my job description. I make videos, I make podcasts. That is my role. I do social media. I'm not a journalist. I've got no insider information. How do you feel about that tag, almost, that you're expected to know things now just because that's your job? That people will be sending you messages going, James, any transfer updates? It's like, are you expected to know now?
It's hard because like, you've got people who report this stuff all the time, and they've been in this job how many years? 20 years. So all the contacts they've built up, and I've just come literally off the street. You know what I mean? I'm not going to have
a year.
Christian Perslow's phone number. Like, I got something last year, and that was just me begging Marvellous Nakamba's agent, please tell me, man. Like, I'm begging you. Like, I need to. And people like trusting me as well. Like, I'm very fond of my American friends, and when Villa went over to Minnesota, them telling me like Douglas Luiz the time, because Dean Smith wandered into a bar, and it was like some of my best mates in America telling me that, and that, being able to say stuff like that and then put your neck out, it's fun. Like, it's all part of the fun, but the best part is just kind of, again, presenting that clear picture. But like, I'm not expecting that I'm going to ever break something until I've been in this job years and got the same level of contacts that other people have, because it's part of the game, isn't it? Making relationships, networking. You can't do that when you've been in the job since January and you've only been in the office twice, and then March has been locked down. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't exist. I mean, with years and years of experience, we've both seen Matt Kendrick's phone book and the kind of opportunities he's delivered to the podcast. By just, I've got this bloke's phone number, I've got Carlos Cuellar, I've got stuff like this. Like, off the hand, this guy's phone number, I've got Stephen Cook's phone number. Like, the opportunities that this podcast had because of that, it's only due for years and years of hard work, networking, and doing the right thing, which is, keeping your nose to the ground and not trying to be this thing you're not, like, not trying to be in the know and going first to everything. I've got to deliver for the Villa fans, because that's a lie. Like, that's a complete lie.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna be. But again, the best thing for Villa fans to wait for is that holding up that club scarf, man, because that's a definite. It's not like Joe Bryan taking photos in the kits and heading down the M6.
We are live on Facebook, as I mentioned. This podcast will be available on YouTube after the fact, and Spotify, iTunes, whatever platform you use to get your podcasts. Should we go to some questions from the live audience, and they will kind of frame the rest of the show? We'll go back to Mandy Greenshields. Are we having Tammy back with 2 kisses? So thanks for that, Mandy. Are we having Tammy back, James? We've talked about it to death, I feel like, at this point, whether it's on live or on the podcast. I can't see it happening, but I would love to see him holding up that Abraham number 9 shirt.
I feel like Villa have got a lot of pull for him. It's again where Villa are in this weird position where they're going to be. Are they going to be in another relegation battle, or are they going to be pushing up?
Yeah.
The thing that goes massively against Villa is the unknowns, the absolute complete and utter unknowns heading into this next season. Villa could be brilliant and they could stumble. And I think that can be a hard sell to players because there's, they've players like Tammy Abraham, if they become available. It's like when we said about Rashica, it's like you will have so much offers on the table. Like, that could be more enticing. I feel like Villa have a big emotional sway. The money's very clearly there to spend on a striker. It depends if the situation exists where it could become available, because it's clearly not available right now. But as it heads towards deadline day, who knows? As much as it goes for us with Luiz and Grealish, it goes for Chelsea and Abraham. And I know he's not that same role, but we'll just have to see.
What else have we got here? Holly Jennings, a regular commentator, the new training wear is fire emoji. It is fire emoji. I'm looking at buying some myself. The black quarter zip jacket, it looks very, very nice. Who else have we got over here? Hemant Katana, butchered that name, I'm sure. Ryan Sessegnon, how realistic is that? This is one we kind of briefly touched on in a podcast where we looked at our transfer targets and kind of skated over a little bit because it did feel a little bit unrealistic. Have your views on that changed at any point in the last couple of weeks?
I'm going to wait and see until this Tottenham Hotspur documentary comes out at the end of the month on Amazon. I want to see how he's settling in there because, before that, I might be going, he's a highly rated, one-time wonder kid when he's playing every match.
He's only 17.
Yeah, Ryan Sessegnon, he's still only 17, even now, like years and years on. That age, he must be like only 19 now as well.
I think he's 20. I think
he's hit 20. Ago. He's absolutely hit 20. Before watching that documentary, I go, it's really unrealistic. When I see Jose Mourinho, he did say how to pronounce his name. It's not Jose. It's definitely not Jose. No, he did say, it's in the trailer as well, so I'm messing up here. But after watching that documentary, I'm going, right, we got to go in for him. Absolutely, we got to get him. Seeing him on the outskirts training on his own, Villa can give him all the games.
First team football.
There's a lot of rumours linking Villa to a left back or a new full back, and I feel like Sessegnon wing left back, that it does it for me. To be fair, I feel like it's like the goalkeeper thing. People criticise the goalkeeper sign because there's a lot of money. What do you think Sessegnon's going to go for? And it's going to be at the very least to when we spoke about Abraham yesterday, to get in. You've got to send that low ball bid, and even with Sessegnon, that low ball bid is still going to be at least 15 million to even get into the room talking to Daniel Levy. So you're talking 15 to 30 million just because of the age and the reputation he's had, even if he hasn't kicked on at Tottenham.
Yeah, and that doesn't feel that realistic, does it, when you say it like that?
No.
Comment here from Darren May. He says, if they're sending Davis out on loan, does that mean we're close to bringing in a striker? Now, I feel a little bit out of the loop here because I've not seen anything with Davis going out on a loan. Can you give me more information on this?
So I think Ash Priest give the lowdown to Lancashire Live, who cover Preston North End, but they have been talking about a deal. There's been links with Davies heading to Preston. I think it was in the Sun 2 or 3 days ago. So it's one of the links to have an outgoing plan that will be Keinan Davis on loan to Preston North End. If it happens, I feel like it's very clearly that Villa need to bring a striker in anyway. I feel like that's the single most obvious thing that happens. So whether Davis goes out now or later in the line, Villa's still going to be getting a striker in. It's I don't think it hinged on necessarily anything happening with Davis, because it was very clear that Villa are going to get a striker in that's going to knock him down the pecking order. He needs that championship game time. He needs 38, 46 games. He needs to play. He's a good player.
He needs to score goals as well, like we've said before. Get out, score goals for a year, come back, and then see if there's a place at Villa there. If he's not developed in a year away in the championship, then you look at moving him on anywhere. Danny Barker asks, when is the Kappa contract over? Now, I feel like I'm guessing here, but I think that's next season, is it? Is this the last year with them?
So it ends in 2022. So next season's
Yeah.
kit will probably, I think that's the last one, unless I have one more in 2022 to take it to 2023, but the deal's over in 2022.
What do you think of Kappa? My opinion's changed on them since having them. When we first were rumoured to be getting them, I was like, oh, it's a little bit almost, I don't know if this is a stereotype that I can say, a little bit chavvy, a little bit kind of not the best brand for sport. I don't know, maybe I'm being stupid with that. But I just thought, plastering the logo all over the sleeves and down the side of the body, I was thinking, I don't know, it just looks a bit tacky. Whereas I think I'm pretty happy with the kits we've had with them. I prefer this year's home to last year's home. Last year's away was pretty nice. The training gear all looks pretty good. I've not owned any of it, but I've seen a lot of it. Obviously, you've got stuff with the sponsors peeling off and the Kappa men falling off and stuff like that. And stuff like that isn't great, but things like that happen with other kits as well. So I don't mind Kappa. My perception has definitely changed.
But the thing with stuff peeling is people ain't washing it right. They're just chucking it in with a normal wash. Like I've had how many kits had what's peeled? It was like the Macron one, and that was
the Macron ones were terrible. Yeah.
Like, but that was because of the thin kind of transfers. Like, I've not had an issue with Kappa, and I wash it all. Like, I wash it every time I wear it. I'm not one of these ones who's kind of protecting it. I chuck it in.
Yeah.
But you got to wash it in a specific way. You can't be ironing it. The wrong way. You've got to follow. Like, there's instructions on the label to keep it in care, and like no one's following them. Because like stuff peels right, so you can have quality issues, but if you follow the instructions, washing something is an act of destruction in the first place. It's tearing away at the fabric, so you can't be chucking it in over and over again with loads of like detergent and not even following the instructions because it's going to fall apart. That's like basic information. But yeah, there have been a few issues. I mean, the transfers have been wonky and stuff, and not all the stitching's been correct. But I feel like I haven't got this year's kit, but the general reaction has been fairly positive. I'm not too keen on the design, but what you can say about Kappa, right, is they try. Like that, Villa are one of their flagship brands, along with Betis and Monaco. They're trying for these teams, so at least when Villa have a design, there's some thought put into it, right? And I appreciate that. It's not like a template. People want Nike, Adidas. If you're gonna get that, you're getting a template.
Yeah, fair. I think it's template as well, by the way, not template. Johnny Wilcox says, of all the transfer rumours Villa have been linked to, who's the most likely, do you think?
I'll put my neck on the line and say Watkins, Benrahma.
Benrahma as well? Really?
I don't know any. I'm just saying. I feel like Villa got there's a good relationship there. I saw a report and it said that his transfer fee had been knocked down to like 12 million.
Who's this? Watkins?
No, Benrahma.
12 million for Benrahma?
Yeah, there must be something going on there. I saw it. I can source it because
you're spreading misinformation here to the public. People are going to be now on Twitter going, oh my God, Benrahma's out for 12 million. James Rushton, the journalist, said so.
We put it out about 3 or 4 days ago. If no one's going mad about it then, I'm not adding any fuel to the fire.
Not saying that. I think Watkins is the most realistic one. Someone took a picture of him in an airport, didn't they, yesterday, I think, a Villa fan, and said, like, oh, you signed for Villa? And he just laughed. And it's like, whoa, well, what does that mean? It's like, doesn't mean anything, does it? He's not going to say, is it?
You shouldn't be getting in people's faces with a camera for one. Ollie Watkins isn't even like fully famous, is he? He's like a championship striker for Brentford. You can't be harassing him on his holiday. Yeah, it's like I couldn't do that, man. Like, I know people like to do that. I know there's a journalistic thing where, like, when Perslow gets the camera like in his face and politics, they're walking down the street and they're getting in right into him. I couldn't do that when I'm on holiday.
Yeah, same.
Like, it's different because it's not like they've come from a really important meeting with stuff to say. Like, this bloke is queuing up to get his passport checked to get into the country. Like,
so, I love all those stories where it's like, I just met Ollie Watkins in the airport and he told me this and that, and it's like, he didn't know, did he? He just didn't.
He did not. Like, it's like I've just seen Ollie Watkins in the Belfry and the geezer. He's like on holiday, like literally 15 minutes ago. Like, God. This stuff kills me.
It's just weird. Holly Jennings says, where the hell is Matt? He's such a part-timer. He's had a week off holiday. He's on holiday. Is it 2 weeks?
Yeah, this is the second week.
Jeez, he is a part-timer. I thought it was only a week. Yeah, I've had to get James on instead. It's just not the same, is it?
To be fair, Matt's not going to say anything about transfers. He's just going to like make a joke and make an anagram or something.
That's what people want, mate. That is what people want. Now we've got the pub quiz 3rd episode coming out this week, and Matt will be on that. So if you're missing Matt and his stupid analogies, he'll be back then, and I think he's back on the podcast next week probably because you'll be binned off for him as a priority.
Cheers.
That's all right, mate. What else have we got in the comments? A lot of questions here.
Tell you what would people say? One of the newest ones. What would people say if you bring Benteke back? And I'm so sick of hearing that geezer's name. Like, you
don't fancy him at all, do you?
Like this guy, Everton can make that mistake.
Someone's asked me if I'm related to Libor Kozak, which I have got a big nose, to be fair. So, Dean, you can take it. I honestly, say what you want about me. I do not care. He's a good-looking bloke. Justin says, are we shipping out Ali Samata? Now, we talked about this, me and Matt, on the episode that we did. I think the why Jack Grealish should stay episode. And it does feel like if Villa bring in a big signing up front, say Watkins, you've got Wesley, do you need Samata or do you keep Samata around and Davis goes out as your third choice? What do you think we do with Ali Samata? Is he worth just keeping around for the sake of a squad?
So if Villa bring in two strikers, I feel like he's very clearly one on the chopping block.
Yeah.
But if you only bring in that one key striker, Samata stays for me. I was really impressed with his mentality at the end of the Project Restart. I know he really struggled to even get a shot on target, but the way he was kind of leading the press and getting involved and being like that leader from the front, I feel like that was something we were completely missing with even Wesley, and Davis. We didn't have that leader up front. Someone getting keen with instructions. Someone listens. It's like how Douglas Luiz evolved. He's suddenly telling McGinn and Grealish where to be instead of like listening for instructions. He's suddenly getting involved. I feel like Samata grew that kind of same way, and he was getting involved. He's got a good mentality. 255 champion boy, man. Like the what was he called in terms of the boy who can never lose? I feel like that changed when he came to Aston Villa.
He can lose, can't he?
A little bit, just a little bit. But now, not necessarily as this out and out Premier League goal scoring threat, but I rate him as a person, as a team player. Like, I feel like there's clearly room for him in this Villa squad. Wesley coming back October at the earliest. So there's still very clearly room in this squad for him.
A 2-comment part question for Omar here. He says, Everton a bid for Decore. Would you go for him? What do we think? I mean, I assume that's going to be a lot of money to get him anywhere.
Nah,
I mean, Watford are going to...
Let Everton do their thing, innit? Like if they wanted Theo Walcott back in the day, they wanted St. Tozen back in the day. They can make those like.
Yeah, but you're making it out like Decore will be a bad signing then.
No, I feel like for the money people go for, it's not the way Villa operate. The money these players go for, there's clearly similar options elsewhere. Like that's how you need to work. You need to look: is this club overbidding? Are they overvaluing that player who fits the same template? It's like Calvin Phillips last season. You're either going to get Calvin Phillips 30 million. I think he would have been brilliant for Villa. You can get two players for 15 million, around 15 million each, or 10 million, and a Nakamba and Douglas Luiz, and that makes sense for me.
Yeah. Russell Evans says, "Do you think that we're playing catch up with signings?" This is weird, isn't it? Because as much as the season starts, 3.5 weeks or something now, and I would like all our business done before the first game of the season, there's still room for that to happen. There's still 3 weeks for us to make all those signings before the first game. It's a weird summer, isn't it, this year? We don't really know what clubs are going to do. There's not many clubs that have made many signings yet. On the patch that we cover, Nottingham Forest have signed a couple, Coventry have signed a couple, but there's been no major moves anywhere, has there really? So are we playing catch-up? I'm not sure I'd word it like that. I would like to see signings at this point, but the fact that we haven't isn't a negative in my opinion. It's just the way that the world's working at the moment. Yeah,
so you're looking at a completely new context where have Villa got that same amount of power? I feel like they do have a fair bit of power, but it's trying not to get exploited by other teams as well. It's not trying to fall into that Brentford trap of paying like 20 million for a player that looks really good at that level who's never going to play for Villa. Like you can't do the kind of Scott Hogan and Ross McCormack mistakes by just trying to lead in the market and trying to get those punches in earlier and making massive mistakes, whether it's in January or the summer. So I feel like just take your time, make the smart moves, get it bang on. You shouldn't be losing like that. You shouldn't be setting yourself up to fail by just going out and striking, trying to get these lightning deals in. Doesn't make any. It makes sense to fans, but it's like set your business up early, get in for pre-season. This isn't last summer. Like this isn't the summer before. This is totally new. Like pre-season doesn't exist. Like here, we've got you're talking a week and a half or 2 weeks, 3 weeks of people practicing before games. You're talking teams looking to exploit teams. You're talking about teams kind of being nervous about putting that first bid in. Nah, not for me.
Do you think that this is different? Do you think there's an argument that the Project Restart style of football is almost like a pre-season? the games came so thick and fast. I know they were obviously more competitive than pre-season. You're not rotating as much as you would during pre-season, but you had a massive 3 or 4 month break. Then you have a quick fire 10 game period, 3 weeks off, and then back into it again, and that almost acts as a bit of a pre-season.
Yeah, I feel like
Kind
you
of.
only really saw the real Villa, like kind of the signs of it, what they were wanting to be, come out during, say, the first 10 minutes of the Man United game before they got a penalty.
Games, yeah.
It's like that was it. Like the first few games, they were like this. I don't want to say nothing team, but it was very the way they took to it pre-season. It's like they're not up to speed, and the players are clearly decent enough, but they've lost a little step in kind of teamwork and that chemistry. But the first 10 minutes of the Man United game, they showed signs of that cohesiveness until kind of a moment happens which scuppers the entire game for them, and they feel like everything's going against us, chuck it. But they picked themselves back up and went for it. So yeah, I feel like the start of Project Restart was very pre-season like, weren't it?
Good point for me there. Carl Billingham says, should we go for Ross Barkley? It's an interesting name, actually. One I've not really
like
considered. Is he at Chelsea still?
Yeah, but I feel like why would you go for Ross Barkley and that's Jack Grealish goes, right? Like that's the only way I could see. It's like the Buendia thing. We go on about Buendia all the time, available for literally for 20 million. Like that's the price you'd go for, and I feel like Ross Barkley, Buendia. I'm going for Buendia like every day, and I feel like the only situation you're ever going to be in a position to sign Ross Barkley in terms of fee and wage, but the package, fee and wages, would be if Jack Grealish goes.
Or a loan, maybe. Would Chelsea be open to a loan, potentially?
Yeah, I just feel like Buendia is probably way more exciting for me.
Yeah, agreed.
Like way more.
What else have we got? I mean, the comments are catching up a little bit. I'm going back in time, so as people are talking about Keinan Davis here, so we'll kind of scout. What am I trying to say? Scoot over that a little bit. I'm tired. What else have we got? Do you feel like we'll see many youth players make the step up next season? Barry, Jaden, etc. This is from Christopher Cheap.
No, Villa got some good young players. They got I can't say his last name, Chukwuemeka. I guess that's a good effort. Mungo Bridge, Vasilev stepping up. Louis Barry, of course. You got people coming in. Sils Finkles was a key name I picked out. It looked quite funny to say out loud. Sorry, I can't be doing him like that. But I feel like Villa trust in their academy. Whether that's comes straight away, they ain't got the 5 subs anymore. They ain't got the extended bench. So I feel like that's a big negative in terms of getting youth players playing. The players that will be playing for Aston Villa are going to be players, obviously, that were part of the squad last year, and new key signings this year. Whether young players fit into that, I don't really see how that could happen until it's the end. A throwaway at the end of the season when we're clearly safe. We ain't got much to play for. Well, there's always stuff to play for. You play for the badge and the fans and 3 points, don't you? Regardless, and your win bonuses and all that. You play for points and a position in the table. But I can't see it happening until like the last few games of the season, if I'm completely honest, or an massive injury issue. So it's never off the cards. Players can impress, but look, if you look at the evidence last season, Vasilev only got onto the bench despite really kicking on for the under-23s because Villa lost all their strikers. That was easy.
We don't want that to happen again.
No.
That'd be a shambles. Sean Jones says, is anyone actually close? What are your predictions on when we may get someone through the door? Butchered the question. No insider knowledge here, but I would love to see someone come through this week because I think you do need to get someone in to get that ball rolling at some point. You don't want to be leaving it too close to the start of the season before you make your first move. I think because there is deals starting to roll into place now, Villa need to get someone in with players coming back from their holidays and stuff like that. Go and get your main target, get them through the door, and get it done.
Yeah, these moves ain't going to be happening until holidays are over. I mean, it makes no sense because people are saying deals can't happen if you're on holiday. They very clearly can. Like, it's not impossible, but I feel like everyone's taking their time, resetting and planning for the above season. Like, some teams might not even know kind of what players they want to fit their team. They want to see people back in training. They want to see the levels. They want to see fitness levels. They want data. They want to see how is this team going to set up for the next season before going, we need to sign this player, that player, and this player and get it done. And potentially dig themselves into a big hole before the season's even begun. So, we need to take time. A lot of people have said, and this isn't just like people in the English transfer market, but all over, they don't expect massive deals or the key deals or the constant churn of the transfer window until either A, that first deal is done, and it kind of opens up a merry-go-round, or B, September. So we got time to wait, man.
Another question from Holly. She says, when is the Claret and Blue Christmas party? Christmas. We've got nothing planned. Probably won't even be allowed to see it at Christmas still.
You got to think about people's health as well, man. Like I've seen pictures like that party in Dublin. We can't be letting it get like that. We have to be taking.
It would be a great idea to do, meet Villa fans and have a drink and stuff, but no plans to do anything like that. But if it is a Claret and Blue Christmas party, it would be at Christmas. Terrible joke. The Religion, Aston Villa FC, says a statement striker signing Tammy or Edouard. I assume he means Edouard. He's put Eduardo.
Yeah.
Either would be great, and a show of intent as would cost 40 million plus. That is a nice kind of way of looking at it. If we do make a big signing like Tammy Abraham and it is a 50 million striker signing, that does show what Villa are about this season. Some people would say, well, maybe that means we're spending the Jack Grealish money before he actually leaves, but I would interpret that as Villa are making a real fist of it for next season.
Edouard, for me, bang on, honestly. I mean, people say this pub league stuff. The guy's scoring goals at we spoke about it on our transfer episode, didn't we? The guy scoring goals at a clip, and you see, Moussa Dembele move to Lyon, and people say, he's been only performed in the pub league, then the geezer scoring against Man City. It makes no sense. If a guy is clearly hitting at the same rate as Dembele, get excited about that, make that deal happen, because he's clearly a good player. If you're fitting that role in that template in that league, it doesn't matter whether it's a pub league or not, or the qualities are about the guy's good. Go for it.
All right. Fair enough. Adam Kelsey says, how many outgoings are we likely to see? Bree, Lansbury, Kalinic, name a few. Yeah, I think all three of those are probably likely to all leave. You do need to trim that squad a little bit, don't you? If you're going to bring in another 4 or 5 signings, you're looking at a squad of 30 plus at that stage, so people are going to have to leave. It's just where they end up and who's going to come and give Henry Lansbury 30 grand a week or whatever he's on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that you might be lowballing him there. Might be on a bit more.
I'm trying to be realistic.
Trying to be conservative. Yeah.
We don't know, do we? I'd assume it's more, but I don't know.
A lot of stuff gets said about wages. People don't really. News just in that we just got from our FB page. Villa have reportedly met Rashica's asking price.
Okay, let's have a quick scout on Twitter, see if what's happening. Is this just reacting to the latest news, though?
Yeah,
do we actually know if there's anything?
We've been hit with a hammer blow with Sheets. Like as we said, like that'd be a marquee signing. We spoke about him last 3 podcasts now at length.
Yeah,
so
I know.
There's nothing more to say apart from
I was literally about to say I don't know what else to say about this guy now.
There's nothing more to say about the fact that he fits the role at Villa very clearly well. RB Leipzig are probably thinking twice about going for him, because I feel like they've only paid top dollar for a few players, and one of them was Naby Keita, who they sold on. And the way Leipzig operate, and they paid 25 their record transfer fee to their sister club Salzburg. So they haven't paid they don't pay a lot of money for good players, because the way they operate, the model is get the player in, profit. Like, is there much profit to be made on a player you're paying 25 to 30 million for, and it's Rashica? They've probably got someone else in mind who they can profit more on and develop. Yeah. That's the way the club works. They don't overextend themselves. They've got a very clear model, and maybe he doesn't fit into that anymore. I saw a lot of people doing that. Journalist in, I think Arlen Sadiku from Kosovo, who first said Villa had met the asking price. Do you know what it smacks to me of? Is this very similar situation to Nakamba when it broke in Zimbabwe, his country, and people didn't believe it because it came from Zimbabwe. And I feel like people do that journalism down when it's coming from a different country, which is really unfair, because if the guy's been told something, the guy's been told something, and it's up to, people just think it's lies, and like we said.
Also, on the other hand of that, you would then be able to say, well, an English journalist has said something about an English player. That doesn't mean that's always true either.
Yeah, exactly. It's like what we said in our transfer rumour thing. There's always going to be a snippet of truth in things, because people think that you just look at one player and get that one player. You're looking at hundreds. Like, you've got this massive list, and you're always making connections and speaking and trying to get these deals. And that journalist knew Rashica personally. Like, he'd been speaking about him a long time, as Omar Rickbells just brought up. Like, people would just go in, he's doing it to get the agent a better deal. You think people aren't looking at Rashica? Like,
that's like when people come to us and say, "Oh, stop trying to sell Jack Grealish." It's like, well, I'm pretty sure Man United are fully aware of the guy.
If someone wanted to do that, that'd be like Build, Birmingham, They'd be getting this stuff out everywhere. It doesn't happen. Like, that's how a Kosovan journalist with 1,000 followers. Like, you aren't, are you?
Yeah. Shall I read you the quotes from this latest update then? This is from, what is it, Sadiku? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
The Super Sport Kosovo broadcaster Sadiku is what we've put. It says, in an update below, he said, Milot Rashica will not play tomorrow in Werder Bremen's friendly match against LASK. The club does not want to risk Rashica suffering any injuries that could affect the transfer. Aston Villa is the team that has fulfilled Werder's requests for the amount desired by the Germans, but the transfer depends very much on the footballer himself. Milot's wish is to play in the Champions League. So just because the Villa have put a bid in for 22 million or however much this is expected to be, if the player doesn't fancy the move, it's kind of irrelevant, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
it's good to see Villa going after their target and saying, here's the money, this is what you want, we're prepared to give it to you. But if he's looking at Villa who've just finished 17th and he fancies a go in the Champions League, he's not going to come, is he? Unless we go in with a big offer that suddenly changes his mind. He thinks, oh yeah, I've always rated Aston Villa, let's go there.
Yeah, it just goes back to what we were just saying. You can be looking at all these players, putting tentative bids in, putting actual bids in, and then it comes down to it, player doesn't want it. This stuff happens all the time. Like, this isn't a new situation. But I feel like the focus is so much more on Rashica because big name player, someone who has been circulated with Liverpool, Dortmund, Leipzig, big clubs with big trending followings, big Twitter followings. You know, the news gets around quickly with these clubs. So, you know, it's again, I know we're always referring back to Tammy Abraham stuff, that when you're at that level and there's offers on the table, you know, there's a lot for him to consider, and maybe Villa may not be at the top of that list for him. But I feel like we're a good fit. We've got a role. You know, we've got money to spend. We want to improve. We want to hold on to our key player, Jack Grealish. We want to hold on to another one, Douglas Luiz. We've got John McGinn as well. We've got a lot of pull. Like, we've got good players and we're on the up. I just feel like it's a bit of a hard pitch at the moment. Again, going back to what we were saying about where do Villa stand now, because, you know, you got promoted as, you stayed up as the 17th team, and you know that's the bottom of everyone else. Yeah,
but that doesn't really mean much for the ambition of the club and where they want to be next year.
I just feel like,
and likewise the other way, just because Sheffield United finished, off the top of my head, was it 8th, 9th? Something like that. Oh, I can't remember where they finished.
Yeah, it's thereabouts, man. It doesn't necessarily.
They finished higher than anticipated. Just because they did that this year doesn't mean they'll do it again next year, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you finish one year doesn't affect the next year exactly. Whatever Villa do in this transfer window will affect how they perform next year, not just going, oh, well, they finished 17th last year, so they'll be rubbish again.
That's just more so the evidence that they've got until you get that player in, show them around the training facilities. You know, if they reject it before then, that's their problem. They've missed out.
Yeah.
You know, they've missed out on moving to Aston Villa. That's their fault. But, you know, that's what they've got to go on.
Joanne Spear asks, is everyone back training at Bodymore Heath? I don't think anyone's back for Villa yet. Are they? Is it next week?
I think it is this week. I think it is either yesterday or tomorrow. But again, we'll see stuff coming out from Villa. As soon as you see pictures, it's back on. But I do think it was this week.
Okay, it's just because I've seen Jack Grealish doing training videos and training pictures in Greece somewhere, I think, so I'll just assume that they were still off for another week or so. Danny Barker again asked, before the pandemic there was talk about working on the north stand and safe standing in the whole end. Do you think this will be put on hold? I would assume yes. I think a lot of plans will have been put on hold because of the pandemic. The talk always with Villa was that they were waiting on stadium developments to see what league they were in. This is when they were in the Championship. It's like, well, if we get promoted, we can probably start looking to do things. We've got promoted, and then in the year that we've been hit with a global pandemic that probably puts plans back on hold anyway. So, yes, I would assume it's still in Villa's mindset to improve the stadium at some stage, but when that happens now, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, they need to. I said it yesterday, and I'm glad no one replied and caught it out because I didn't think it through. I thought you could have rail seating, right? If you wanted fans back in, you could have rail seating and put plastic screens up. I was thinking, how would people get through? Like, they wouldn't be able to get through. You have to have a movable plastic screen like a door.
Yeah, I'd delete that tweet if I were you. Jaden Dobinson says, do you think Ollie Watkins would play as a striker or out on the wing? It's an interesting point, actually.
Wing.
So he'd come in to play up front, score goals. But if we saw, what scenario would we need to see him out on the wing? Because we've signed a Tammy Abraham and he's the main man, and Watkins is going to start out on the right, or he's going to play on the wing as cover.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. If you've got that marquee shot signing in to play striker, and Dean Smith has said like Ollie Watkins was always going to be a striker. It's like kind of what Steve Bruce was saying about Jedinak. He was always going to be a centre back in my mind. It's like Dean Smith said the same with Ollie Watkins, not centre back but centre forward. He was always going to be a centre forward. He had quality to back up Neil Mopai in his time at Brentford. So I feel like I'd be very happy with him as a centre forward, but I feel like when Wesley comes back, or kind of the player that fits that profile, the hold-up man, the focal point, there is more threat and opportunity for Watkins on the wing to do some damage.
This is a nice point to count what you just said. Bottom of everyone else, but first in the relegation scrap. So
yeah, no, that's the best way of looking at it, man.
Winners in some capacity. Yeah,
top dog in that scrap.
Sean Brady says Xherdan Shaqiri from Liverpool worth a shout to play wide right. Oh, I always forget he was at Stoke City at one point. How mad is that?
Very good player. Like I love Shaqiri, but I feel like the problem is when these players, like Origi, when these players move to Liverpool, they get smacked with a massive wage, and that like prices them out of that. Step back to normality. You know what I mean? I feel like when Villa went down,
how much do you reckon he's on?
Man, like I would say, it's got to be 100 grand at the least. So if you're moving to Villa, that would make him, until I'd assume, a new contract for Grealish, the highest paid player. Like that, so. You got to think about disruption to kind of the wage structure in the dressing room. You know what I mean? What has Shaqiri done to be Villa's highest paid player? Like that. That's how he's a very good player, but like compared to Grealish and Luiz and McGinn, but then you're talking new contracts for all these lot. And then you're talking that complete disruption of Villa's wage structure. It needs to build on, but it needs to build steadily. You can't just be bringing in these signings who want to collapse that structure instantly. It needs to have that natural progression, lest you collapse, go down, and you completely destroy the club.
Having said that, I would assume that if we keep hold of the players that we expect or that we want to, Grealish, Luiz, McGinn, Mings, are they going to get new contracts this summer as part of that? And that will give them the wage rise to start Villa being this more well-rounded almost.
You've just got
club.
to take your baby steps, haven't you? Instead of bringing in everyone who's going to be on 100, 120 grand this summer, look at that as a next summer thing. You've got to build. It's like last season, you had to take them baby steps, and look from last season where Trezeguet developed a little bit, who could be, something a lot better than the player he was. You had Luiz that developed into the player he is now, which is linked back to Man City, then linked to staying at Villa, linked to a new contract. You got McGinn, who I've heard is going to be, I think I saw a report about him being offered a new contract. Grealish with a new contract. So you got to take these baby steps, pay the players who deserve it and have saved you this season, the quality ones, and then start thinking about upping that wage structure. But I can't see Shaqiri coming in and then being given this wage structure, this wage packet, when he's done nothing. He wouldn't have done anything at Villa to deserve that. Like, I feel like reward the players who have saved you this season, McGinn, Luiz, Grealish, and then build that core of the squad, keep it together. I think that's massively important. Shaqiri, again, it's a Grealish goes move for me.
Yeah, but also without getting carried away and giving out 5-year massive contracts to everybody and a massive wage increase. And then if you do get relegated at any point, you're screwed. You've got to be sensible about it. And I feel like Villa probably are more sensible now than they ever have been.
Which it goes again, the sensible thing is, if you want to pay big wages, pay it to the players who have earned that and keep them. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I'm going to ask you one more transfer question, because I feel like we've just done everything to death and we're only here for another 5 minutes or so. So if anyone's got any non-transfer related questions, non-football related questions at this point, I don't care. We've got through 45 minutes without talking rubbish, so I feel like we need some light relief.
I don't know about that, man. I feel like maybe Facebook Live is a very rewarding place. When it comes to YouTube, it's a whole different story, isn't it?
Good point. Final transfer question then from Owen. He says, do you think 40 million is too much for Odsonne Edouard that we've been linked with from Celtic? Is it too much? He's 22, I think. He's scored 40-odd goals in 60 games. Yes, it's not a league that was comparable to the Premier League in terms of standard, but he scores goals, he's young, he's got sell-on value. 40 million is probably about what people want, isn't it, these days?
Man, it works for me, and the reason it works for me, again, like, would you pay 40 million for Moussa Dembele from Lyon right now? I would. Yeah, I'd do it for Edouard then. Get in. It's like, just in a question about even Tony, that's who Brentford are looking at to kind of step up into the team when Watkins and Barama go.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just get in early and get the player you want before they make that move, and then you're a victim of being sold on at a massive price. The players are still playing; they're going to develop. What's the best thing about kind of this Villa coaching staff is how the players have developed under them. Like, people just say, "Oh, Grealish has kicked on, Luiz has kicked on." They ain't done it on their own. Like, they've been coached. Trezeguet's been coached. Like, that's Villa's coaching staff. Like, they're doing their job, and like that's why Dean Smith's in. Cutler, John Terry, Craig Shakespeare, O'Kelly. They're doing their job, and that's the best thing about Villa is seeing these players improve. You probably didn't think last season that this buyback clause for Douglas Luiz was ever going to happen. Like the reason it is because he's kicked on massively and he's a brilliant player.
There's a question from Twitter from Tom Banner. He says, do a World Cup of best Villa players from the 21st century. It's so much harder than doing the worst players. And it's something that we did talk about at one stage, but we realised there's probably like 5 or 6 good Aston Villa players, and you probably wouldn't be able to do a knockout tournament.
So it's easy. We're doing a kit one right now. We've got the 2 qualifiers getting out the way. So we'll have the first round, a few first round fixtures drop at like 5 o'clock. Something today. So
is that today? I've got to make some graphics then.
You're going to be using a few shirts you've already used, to be honest. You're going to be using at least 2 because we're going to get those fixtures out the way. So we're doing that. It's easy to decide on that because you just literally counted back and back, right? You just went, right, this year's kit, go back 32 kits and then stop at a good one. That's why we got the qualifiers, because we had a few more that needed to get in, because I think we cut out at 32 teams, and I think that was just before 1984, so we wouldn't have even had the 1982 unless we kind of went further. So we had 2 qualifiers to kind of get it to 32 and then kick on. We can do that with Villa players. It depends on the criteria, like your dues. Like, what would you say player of the season every year? Because then you're going to get Albert Adoma and like for 2 years in a row. You know what I mean?
You just have to pull out all the big names, wouldn't you, and then fill up the numbers with other decent players. But
just use who scored ratings. You could do a massive one, 64 players. That I reckon that would be grand.
Talking of those kits, we did the one of the show 2012 versus 2017. Easily 2017 for me. And ironically, the one I'm wearing, which looks pink in real life. It looks better when it's drenched in sweat, and it makes it a little bit darker. Yeah, it grew on me. It's a pretty simple
I will
shirt,
say that 2012 Macron had a lot of love, because that had a lot more love as the best Macron shirt. People were saying that, but it got, it's a matchup. It's just going to get hammered by that kit, because that was the best Under Armour kit. They only had 2, didn't they? So.
The other 2 were this year's Kappa kit versus the 2001 Diodora NTL shirt, which, to be fair, I don't mind it, but in that picture in particular, it's pink, isn't it? So
it's not.
You have to go with the new kit out of those 2.
And what I will say about that Diodora shirt is that that shirt is the most Villa shirt without obeying any of the Aston Villa's design conventions. Ain't got no blue sleeves. There's barely any blue on it. It's not even claret. It's like it is pink or purple, depending on the lighting. So, but it works for me, to be fair. It's getting the matchups, and the matchups are going to destroy some good shirts.
Oh, mate, 100%. Some of those ones you've put in that knockout tournament, there's going to be some disappointed people, I'm sure. Another one from Twitter. I've got a couple more before we go. Because I'm starving. Ross Haywood says, let's hear some podcasts with some more ex-players and hear what they're thinking about the new season, where we think we'll finish, etc. I would love to get more ex-players on, but as always with things like this, it's very difficult to get people organised and sorted. It was a lot easier during the peak of lockdown, when people literally couldn't leave the house, because we could just say, here's a link, click on this, give us an hour, thank you very much. People's lives are starting to chug back into get back into steam, aren't they? So people are busy with actual things to do, so it is difficult to get people, but if we can get anyone on, we will still work to do so. Is there anyone you'd like to see, James, like a dream podcast guest maybe? Apart from Tim Sherwood.
Ian Taylor's grand, isn't he? We've already had him, but just been on again and again. I think what did we get hit with before? It was like an agent saying, if you want this ex-player on, here's for you £500.
Yeah, there was a list, wasn't it, of 2 or 3? I think it was like
I don't think we can name them, company. But it's very obviously good, big former villains who have been in the media, who have agents who are obviously, they deserve to be paid for their time, I guess.
Yeah, of course, but it's
just tricky, man.
A lot of money for a couple of those names, like hundreds of pounds. So
yeah, I'm not gonna pay like £100 by the company.
Not for this podcast.
To be on this podcast to say stuff he's already said on TalkSport. You know what I mean? Like,
TalkSport, is it? Oh, interesting. Who could that be? It literally could be anyone, to be fair. I'm not giving anything away there. As we descend into some kind of nonsense, I want to end with one that we got on Twitter. I think you'll like this one, actually, from Jack Miller. He says, in a Hunger Games scenario of the current Villa squad, who is the last man standing and who is first out? Now, what would you be judging this on? Is it like a big fight scenario? Is that what we judge?
So you got to think, right, it's like Robot Wars, just damage, speed, style, aggression, and control. If Craig Charles isn't writing it, that'd be sick, man, honestly. I just see
wasn't
the
Gabby,
comment,
by the way.
defo Gabby. It wasn't Gabby
It
because
wasn't
Gabby was
Gabby.
on the podcast. You'd need to watch
Yeah.
our podcast, mate, to be fair. Hunger Games scenario. So, this is... I feel like you've got to go for the big dog, and it's like Fortnite or anything. You got to bat any battle royale. So you got to go for the big. The big dog needs to go instantly. So I feel like Tyrone Mings, you're gone first. I feel like you're gonna get picked on, people ganging up on you.
You reckon? Don't you think he could hold his own though? He's a big guy.
Not against if the whole Villa squad, but now we're taking you. Like you got Engels, Konza, Hors, Nyland, like big arms, swim milling them arms around. Depends on the weapons. Are we talking about killing Villa players?
I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happened.
The one that stays. So we're not talking about that. They're not going to be murdered, right? Like they're going to be living. I just think
Yeah.
it's Nerf guns, right? It's Nerf or whatever.
Okay.
It's soft play materials. I think the one who would survive to the end. I feel like Heaton. I think.
Fair.
Because he could get people to follow him, leadership, and then just sack them off. Go, nah, you're done now. I've done you in.
Wow. Nice answer there, yeah. All right, I'll let you have that one. I mean, for somebody that, when we descend into our usual nonsense of these podcasts, you're very much like, oh, well, stick to football. You don't want to buy into it. Then I ask you a question like that, and you start talking about murdering Villa players, so you're the one who's getting carried away, mate.
Man. Don't say who. But I want to know your answer, man, quickly.
I'm going to stick with my guy, Tyrone. Just to go
because you
opposite to what
couldn't
you
say
said.
it because you don't follow you on Twitter.
I wonder whether he still follows me. Shall we have a quick look? I wonder if I've annoyed him yet with my tweets about just silly things. I know he still follows me. I wonder what he thinks. I wonder whether he only follows 600 people. I wonder whether he ever sees my tweets and thinks, what is he talking about? Because I tweet some rubbish, to be fair.
At least it ain't me, to be fair. I had Keinan Davis follow me because I wrote something nice about me. He unfollowed me the next day.
Wow. Excellent.
So sad. You only followed 12 people or something. It was mad. I was just like, what the hell?
Who's your biggest follower? Like, have you got any footballers that follow you or anything?
Nah.
Anyone famous?
Nah.
Okay, all right. That's a boring end to the podcast.
No, I've got the guy from Trailer Park Boys, Julian.
I don't know who that is.
No, Cyrus, he just drives a Ferrari around and he's a bad guy. He's a cool dude. I've got him following me. I don't know why. He DM'd me as well. I was just like, what the...
It's a shame we don't get any actual DMs with anything important to talk about, isn't it? Like inside information. That'd be nice. Although the thing is, with stuff like that, is if you do... We talked about this the other day, I think. If you do have any inside information, usually you can't share it. Because if you have it, you're having it with the knowledge of keep this to yourself for now. So if you share it, you don't get the information in the future anyway.
It was like last season with the Douglas Luiz stuff. People messaged me saying, source, and I was like, me? Me? I'm putting my neck on the line saying it. But like, if you get a message stuff like that, and there's always ways you can kind of sneakily pull it in. Like last season with the Jack Butland stuff, the Jack Butland that was definitely it was on the cards, weren't it?
It was definitely happening.
You could just put it in a roundup, at the bottom, like Jack Butland's on his way to it. You can work it in like that, but like you've got to have. There has to be confidentiality. Are people trusting you with this stuff? You can't just name them and get put their job in jeopardy. It's like Nakamba's agent last season. You can't just go, yeah, this guy's told me this and now he's going to get sacked. But like sometimes you do reveal that information because it was like with Nakamba, people were like going, oh, he's on strike, we don't want that player, and that was just clearly not the case. You just got to be careful and just trusting people and being nice and being a thoughtful person with that information rather than anyone saying stuff on Twitter. Like there's clearly something that has gone wrong there because if you have that information, that's not the way to divulge it because it's sometimes disrespectful, I guess.
I suppose the flip side of that, the argument from the outside looking in will be, well, why even know the information in the first place if you can't share it? What's the point of being told that a deal is done if you can't tell anyone?
I don't. It's just stuff hangs on it, don't it? I guess if you ever said a deal's done and it's not, and then because of that, I guess they scuppered the deal. Like,
yeah, fair.
Stuff like that can happen. So, the contract deal stuff is like embargoed and it's kept secure for very good reasons, and that's not to hide it from the public. It's to make sure everything's good to go before you say it.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end as we approach an hour. I've got another couple of podcasts to do this afternoon, so I've had text from people saying what's happening. So probably need to go. If any of you are watching, waiting for me to finish, I'm with you shortly. Bear with me. So James, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Claret and Blue podcast. As we said earlier, this was streamed live on Facebook. So if you want to go and follow our Facebook page, there's a link in the YouTube description down below where you can go and engage with us live. If you've missed this live, then like I said, it is available on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or any other podcast provider of your choice. But if you're 50 minutes into this episode and you weren't here live, you already know that anyway because you're on one of those platforms. So pointless ending as always. Thanks very much for all your support. We'll be back at some point when news happens. Hopefully it's a sign in the next few days because we're all getting itchy feet a little bit. Is that the right phrase? Itchy feet? It is, isn't it? Cold feet?
It's not athlete's foot you've got because of transfer signing.
Itchy feet is a sign. I feel like I'm agitated. Anyway, right, let's just get out of here. This is why we don't do things live too often because we just talk rubbish. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back soon. Up the Villa, guys.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, up the Villa.